Greetings, class, and welcome to Workshop 1. In this workshop, we're going to look at what ethics are and how we consider them as Christians. And if you open this Workshop 1 tab here, page, you'll find an introduction just in general terms to the workshop itself. In this first reading, you're going to find some discussion about what ethics are and what is it, and how do we consider it. It really does deal with concepts of what should you do and what's the best thing to do. Um, and really, when we think about those things, we're talking about ethical principles. What is the right thing to do? Um, anyway, we have this, in this discussion goes into a basic human need for right and wrong. And so what we want to do is really look at, and this is an introduction, so it's going to do this. It talks about the broad field of philosophy and what exactly, where ethics is placed within that. But if you look at this field of philosophy, um, we have four different areas that we're going to address here. There are more than that in philosophy, but here we're only going to look at metaphysics, understanding what is real. Uh, that's an older term, not in use a lot right now, but metaphysics and understanding what is real is often referred to as ontology, but we're going to refer to it as metaphysics. What is the real? When we talk about epistemology, we want to know how do we know what we know? Epistemology can mean uh, a wide range of things, but it addresses how you come to make sense of things, how you come to know what you know, and there are a lot of different ways that can happen, and a lot of different epistemologies that are available. Then we move on to logic, and basically, how do we decide what arguments are valid, what arguments really do have validity, and then ethics is really about how we act. So when we look at philosophy in general, there's all these components that are in philosophical study: social, political, aesthetics, religion. Philosophy of religion is not the same thing as studying religion, but history of philosophy. And then, of course, you can have a philosophy of history and science and a philosophy of your mind. And then we come down to ethics here. So we go into some detail about metaphysics, and metaphysics really comes from Aristotle, Aristotelian philosophy, and basically it was a term that was used um, really to address the ultimate reality. Um, Metaphysical philosophers are really not quite as common as they once were, but there are still people who work with this. And so the questions that they ask look like this. You'll see them here. Then epistemology basically is how do you know something? Um, Basically, there are several different ways. You can have faith or authoritarianism when somebody tells you what to know. Subjectivism, rationalism, empiricism, and pragmatism. In reality, many of us combine some of these together. Nobody is all in one category or another. Then logic is broken down into two different approaches, mainly deductive and inductive. Basically, the deductive method is a series of statements that lead to a conclusion, while inductive is examining the evidence and then coming up with a conclusion based on the evidence. And then we get to ethics. We have three different descriptions of it: meta ethics or theoretical ethics. What does it really mean? Descriptive ethics. How do we describe it? And then normative ethics. What I mean by descriptive ethics and how do we describe it? How do we describe moral and ethical beliefs and customs when we see it in other people? Normative ethics basically attempts to create a set of ethical standards that we believe these are the ethical standards we should follow. Um, but anyway, that's the reading in that section. So you'll go through that material, get a better understanding of it. And then there's some more reading here in 1.2 where you deal with major ethical systems. They talk about that here, but it's also in Ray's book where we talk about that. Um, they talk about all these different approaches to ethical systems and where they fit within a philosophical argument. So you want to look at those as well. Then we'll go on to the discussions for this week. First discussion is going to be a question of that you'll respond to about relativism. And basically, there are some discussion prompts here. What degree do you believe relativism is required as a basis for harmony in multicultural society? And why do you answer the question the way you do? And second of all, do you believe there's an absolute standard of right and wrong against which all cultures everywhere can be judged? And if so, where does it come? And do you believe that tolerance is always good? If you do, explain why. If not, explain why not. And what are some evidences of cultural relativism in American society? When you look at the assessment criteria, this is the rubric by which all discussions will be graded. You'll notice that there are 3 points to this: developing a well-reasoned argument and develop it well. It's timely, and then you respond to other students. You need to respond to at least 2 other students. At least that. More than that would earn you the maximum points. Then in discussion 1.4, we're going to have this reading assignment that you're going to undertake in Moral Choices, Chapter 5. Read Chapter 5 in Moral Choices if you're not sure about these issues, ethical controversies, and so on. So they're suggesting that you read that chapter if you're not aware of these ethical theories. And then ask 3 questions. What are key principles a relativist might apply? What potential answers might they give? And then how do you evaluate the relativist position as it helps or does not help a person reach a conclusion? Okay, then we get to research 1.5. And in this research, basically, you're going to look at defining the word integrity. So we have several different ways that we can think about it. But here they give you several resources, biblical resources that you can refer to. So that's what you're looking at. Then we get to the discussion here at 1.6. And in this discussion, we're going to talk about the biblical foundations of personal integrity. Now, this is a question for you to answer. What does personal integrity mean to you, and how do you measure it? And what do you think would have to change in most people's lives to have true personal integrity? And how do you think people develop righteousness, justice, honesty, and holiness in their lives? And how could you, to a greater degree, help develop these traits in yourself? Okay, that's 1.6 discussion. 1.7 is more reading, and in this we're going to look at personal integrity. And in this one, you're going to need to have downloaded the second book in the course, McAdams' book, and you'll need to do some reading out of there. And what we're going to do is really define personal integrity. Now, there's some reading to do here, but when we talk about intentional integrity, these are concepts that are going to come out of McAdams' book. So in this reading assignment, read chapters 1 and 2 of An Intentional Integrity, which is the McAdams book that you'll download. Okay, then we'll get to discussion 1.8, and in this discussion you're going to talk about what is intentional integrity. You're going to provide your definition of what you think it really means, and why should it be intentional, and do you think we have a problem with that in America? If so, in what ways? And again, the rubric is here, and that's what I'll be using to grade your discussions. And then finally, in workshop 1, your personal intentional integrity plan, or PIP, PIIP. This is not really something you're going to submit, but this is for you to start thinking about. You'll need to start preparing for the creating a PIP notebook. So this is your own personal use. You won't turn it in itself, but the components that go into the notebook will be turned in this course. So this is the end of the workshop. The personal intentional integrity plan is just for you to set up a notebook and to think about the assignments that will go into that. So again, if you have any questions, let me know, but this will be the workshop assignments for this week. And again, let me know if you have any questions. Have a blessed day.